Hey there, friends. Well, we're about to roll into the weekend like a ball of fire. This is a shocking video that James O'Keefe has uncovered from a high-level employee at the Department of Defense. But first, go check out my friends, Attorneys on Retainer. I mentioned in a video a couple of weeks ago that insurance companies will keep you out of the poorhouse, but attorneys will keep you out of the big house. Attorneys on Retainer does just that. There are only 3 qualifiers for coverage. These are if you're charged with a crime, misdemeanor, or a felony, that you reasonably and in good faith assert self-defense as a defense to the criminal charge that you are being charged with. And of course, the third qualifier, you have to have already been a customer of Attorneys on Retainer prior to making that very important phone call to them. Go to attorneysonretainer.us. Again, attorneysonretainer.us. When you sign up, use my discount code FTATF and get a massive discount. Again, FTATF for huge savings, attorneysonretainer.us. This is an interesting yet extremely awkward video that James O'Keefe has uncovered. You know, James O'Keefe is the guy who goes undercover with the undercover cameras, and he gets people to say really stupid things about their jobs in the federal government and things that they do that we kind of already understand and we kind of already know, but the extreme left doesn't want to say it out loud. These people say it out loud, and the interesting way that James does this is he attempts to, or I guess he's pretty successful at it, he pretends that he is a gay man and he's trying to get a date, or this is like the I guess the foreplay, if you will, of a date leading up to whatever exchange is supposed to happen amongst those folks. I really don't want my mind to go there, guys, so I apologize. Hey, if that's your thing, that's your thing. I'm just saying, it's not my thing. Anyway, this guy with the Department of Defense, he thinks he's fixing to get the ding-ding because he's unloading information that he's probably not supposed to say, but he thinks it's going to get him into bed with James O'Keefe, who is pretending to be a gay man. Watch this. This is crazy.
I'm an assistant director.
Assistant director?
Mm-hmm.
What part of it?
I work for the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness.
So you're Aiden.
Yeah.
And your last name?
Gray.
So Aiden Gray.
Yes.
Meet Jason Beck, Associate Director, Total Force Requirements and Sourcing Policy, Office of the Secretary of Defense. Even though his real name is Jason Beck, his LinkedIn says Jason Beck, and phone records from his cell phone indicate that Jason Beck is who he is, he introduced himself to me as Aiden Gray.
Is it Aiden your real name?
What do you mean my real name?
Is it your middle name? Is it your...
It's my first name.
It's your first name.
Okay.
Jason Beck is not a low-level official. He told us he writes the answers for high-level officials at congressional posture hearings. Jason Beck tells us the division he works inside the Department of Defense, Personnel and Readiness, handles diversity, equity, and inclusion matters.
Since we're Personnel and Readiness, they've been taking aim at us a lot lately. They don't like diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, the DEI stuff that we're doing.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I'm guessing he was a shoo-in for that job, with being the head of DEI with the federal government, especially the push, no pun intended, of this whole DEI crap at the federal level. But this next clip is the one that bothers me the most. And I'll tell you why. Not because this, I don't know, whatever you want to call him. I'm not really sure what he is, and you'll see what I'm talking about later on in the video, but I'm going to call him a he simply because that's the way he was born. This person may not be a shot caller, but this person clearly has influence. Being high level, they are influencing conversations within the Department of Defense, and they are influencing different topics that get discussed. Again, this person may not be the one that says yes or no, but this person is definitely involved in the conversation, and this is a scary part of this conversation.
Jason Beck, Associate Director of Total Force Requirements and Sourcing Policy from the Office of the Secretary of Defense, says he would like to work on a monopoly on violence, which, according to Britannica, is a concept that the state alone has the right to use or authorize the use of physical force. Beck describes it as, quote, "We, the government, are the only ones with guns."
I would like to do some work on the state's monopoly on violence.
On the what?
The state's monopoly on violence.
State's monopoly, what is that?
It's the idea that the state, meaning the country, is the only sort of legitimate purveyor of violence and force of force. We're the only ones with guns, right?
Going back to your topic, it's like the state should be the only one that has access to these sorts of firearms, essentially.
Yeah.
Jason Beck, Associate Director, Total Force Requirements and Sourcing Policy from the Office of the Secretary of Defense, says that, quote, "We, the government, should repeal the Second Amendment and take all the guns away," unquote. Man, they always shout Second Amendment, Second Amendment.
I think we should repeal it and take them all away. Whatever, just take them all. Gosh, there's so many things that you could do.
On guns, particularly, would just be repeal it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we have a need for it.
Jason Beck says you just have to take the guns, up to and including mobilization of the National Guard. How do we deal with these crazy people, though, that they don't want to give them up?
You have to take them.
So what would be like a federal solution?
But I wonder if you would see a similar solution to like school integration.
Yeah.
You know, where they did have to mobilize the National Guard. How many people in the National Guard, maybe were personally opposed to integration, but still followed orders and made it happen?
Hopefully they would have to follow the orders.
Right.
Because that's what they'd have to do.
Right. Yeah, if it's a lawfully given order.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you see, Sugar Britches here doesn't really understand how the Constitution works, which is even scarier because at that level, within the Department of Defense, you would think they would understand how processes work. He's just talking about repealing it. He's not talking about the Convention of States. He's not talking about anything else. And then he's even going so far as to say that we would mobilize the federal troops and go just confiscate weapons. Again, completely sidestepping and ignoring the Second Amendment. I'd like to remind you again that even though we know this is not a constitutional thing that they can employ, there's obviously conversation. This, again, is a high-level person within the Department of Defense. Don't let his looks, his demeanor, his sweetness fool you. This is a high-level employee at the federal government level in the Department of Defense. This is clearly how our federal government tries to work. Look at all the politicians out there. Politicians have the same level of ignorance as this guy, but the same level of want as this guy. They all want the same thing this guy does. Again, he's saying the quiet stuff out loud only because he doesn't realize that he's being recorded. That's the only reason why he's saying that. This, to me, is not shocking that it's being talked about and that these people talk about this. What's more shocking is that somebody this eager to get some male poontang, whatever you want to call it, is just spilling his guts like this, not even vetting the person that he's wanting to jump in the sack with. Speaking of that, those of you that probably have a little bit more of a higher moral standard, or at least you have a gag reflex, you may not want to watch this very short last clip from this interview. Apparently, old boy here had some of his male parts taken care of. Bottom surgery, as they call it. Again, if you don't want to hear about this, turn this off. But I think this is a perfect indication right here that this person is a nutbag. They are surgically taking parts off of their body.
Beck goes on to give us detailed information about how his plumbing is different.
So I had bottom surgery.
Bottom surgery?
Yeah.
What happened?
What do you mean?
The bottom surgery.
Yeah.
Oh. Yes.
How is that any different from me having hand surgery? I decide I don't want this hand. Would you think I was crazy if I decided to surgically remove my left hand? This person is a nutbag. Well, nutless bag.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.